Welcome to another Pint with Seaniebee, coming to you from my home city of Dublin. We're in one of the great Irish bars called the Long Stone, and it is a typically winter setting in type of Friday in Dublin. My guest is having a pint of Guinness. I'm off the booze for Stoptober, which will make up for booze and Sigvember. Thank you all again for all your shares, likes and support. We've recently seen a 100% increase in listeners. Things seem to be moving in the right direction, and I thank you all for sharing it and pushing it out for me. Really interesting guest today, a guy who's just arrived in Dublin this morning. He looked me up. I don't know an awful lot about him. We've never met, but we have a lot in common. He once said that his job was flying around the world talking to people, and that's exactly what I do. He also has a background in advertising. He is the partner of the Palmerston Group, which is a boutique research firm in Ontario, in Toronto, in Canada. And he has a title of an ethnographer. We're going to find out what the difference between an ethnographer and a researcher is, I hope, today. But I'm welcoming to the podcast Daniel Berkal. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
Welcome to Ireland.
Thank you very much.
First impressions?
First impressions are it's a fantastic pint of Guinness.
Is that your first pint of Guinness?
It's my second pint.
Very good.
I've been here for a couple hours now, so.
It is only 2 o'clock in the afternoon, folks. You'll get on great. You're here for a wedding.
I am, yes, in Kilkenny.
Mount Julia, you said, yeah?
Mount Julia, yeah.
Really snazzy.
Should be fancy. Should be nice.
I was saying to Diane, to any of my American friends, if you're coming over, or international friends, if you're coming over to Ireland, the only part of the Midlands of Ireland that's probably worth visiting is Kilkenny. We have a saying here in Ireland, with apologies to most of the people who live in these parts of the country, that if you cut out the middle section of Ireland and threw it away, we wouldn't lose much. Daniel, you're an ethnographer. Tell people what an ethnographer is and why it's different from a researcher.
Well, it's interesting, Sean. I mean, the titles we give ourselves, the titles that are given to us, especially in a place like America where titles are so important in the advertising business. Ethnographer makes the most sense for what I do. I tell my friends I travel the world and talk to strangers. Yeah. And that's exactly what I do. And I go into the world.
So am I an ethnographer?
I think anyone who talks to people with a curious outlook and an analytical mindset and is able to make sense of it afterwards has a degree of that to it. Clients hire us often to go into the world and talk to their consumers face to face, in their homes and their cars. But it can get pretty off that as well.
So is ethnography defined more as the opposite to research, where people are in a more clinical environment?
The research business in general is a pretty junk business. It's a lot of hospital-like focus group rooms, and I do that occasionally. But more often than not, we like going into the real world. We use wireless microphones and hidden cameras, and we try to do something we call stunt ethnography also.
Right, what's that?
Kind of make little stunts that would be really fun for us to do, for our team to do, with the intention of making the entire product better for the client. So we'll go to pool parties in Las Vegas to understand the real vibe of a certain audience at that party. Yeah.
One of the problems I had, and we both myself and Diane have a background in the advertising strategy business, which uses research as a raw material. I worked on Procter & Gamble for 10 or 12 years. Spent my whole time desperately trying to get them to stop using link tests, and failed. Those of you in the business will know what that means. But what stunned me about P&G was the amount of money that they put in good faith in things like this, and things like going out into the homes, into the marketplace. I was in China, for example, for a year or two with them, and I went to see places that blew my mind away, and I went to talk to consumers, as they call them, who blew my mind away, but they never really acted on the insights, such as all of your ads are shit, such as I don't believe your advertising, such as your products are too expensive. So the really core things that people were saying to P&G, they just ignored it.
Well, in a business like that, you have so much politics along the route that you're going to have a difficult time taking any kind of findings and making them actionable. The ethnography that companies buy isn't really true academic research. A lot of it's theater, right? A lot of it's getting the clients out of their cubicles, out of their offices, into the world where they can see people doing what they do, making them buy in along the way. Then the sell at the end of what the actual message is isn't as difficult to get across. we don't work with P&G ourselves, so I can't speak
sorry,
to that,
P&G, for using you as a scapegoat, but it's not just P&G, it's of course loads of the big corporations do this.
Yeah, I think large organizations will often pay for, I have an example in my head of an automotive company we worked with. We told them a very clear finding, and they just completely ignored it and went the entire opposite way. And it is funny. I mean, being outside the business for a while, it's kind of hilarious because it's really just a crutch in many cases. Like, I'm a senior marketing person. I'm going to make a decision. I have it backed up with research that says I'm right. And if it goes wrong, well, I did the due diligence of research. I tell my students all the time, research is not science. Research is as much theater and as much art and as much going through the motions as it is any kind of science. I don't have the answers to the world.
Sure.
I don't pretend to have the answers to the world. I have a pretty good sense on how to figure things out and how to show you certain elements of what's going on in the consumer environment.
Yeah.
But whatever you do with it at the end, it's your money.
So you were saying you were born in Canada and then you moved to, what was your origins?
Oh man, I was born in Canada. I was born in a place called Winnipeg. And I went back there recently for a project. My opinion changed because the city didn't. It's been very static. But it's the coldest place in the world.
Wow.
And so I think that's probably where I got my way of looking at people. When I was a 5-year-old child, looking out the window of the Hudson Bay Company onto Portage Street and watching the world freeze and people kind of snake by this intersection.
Yeah.
I always found it very interesting to watch people.
But back in Winnipeg, were you only child? What was your family background? What were you?
I have 2 sisters, 2 lovely sisters.
Yeah.
I have loving parents. My dad is a physician, and he decided to move to Arizona and bring our whole family down there. So we went from the coldest place in the world to the hottest place in the world.
Where were you, in Tucson or?
In Phoenix.
Phoenix.
And so I was there for a while. And then eventually we moved up to Canada, back to Canada. But over the years, I've lived in Austin, in Detroit, in Chicago, in Los Angeles.
So you were constantly changing
Montreal.
Schools when you were a kid and having to make new friends. So that would be something that probably stood to you later.
Totally, John. I was always the new kid from the beginning of school until the 8th grade. And so you learn these coping mechanisms of how to meet people. I became really good at becoming very quickly close with people.
Right.
I'm the kind of person that can talk to someone, build at least somewhat of a connection. I'd be a perfect cab driver if I knew how to drive well. There's 2 things about me that make me who I am. One is that I have this experience of being the new kid all the time. The second is I have the attention span of a small animal. So what I learned in advertising is that working on one client for a couple years at a time got me very bored very fast.
Yeah.
Nowadays, we work on clients. They change.
The thing about it is as well, because we did the same thing in strategy. You get a problem, you analyze it. People are paying you for your point of view on what they should do. When you arrive at your solution, I found that it, usually it felt clear and right to me, not necessarily to everybody else. But it's very hard when you go through that journey and you come to, this is what this brand I feel should do, and it gets rejected, and you have to go back to the drawing board and come up with something else, because you kind of you'll always go, fuck, I had the answer and they just didn't want it. So I think that's why whenever I was involved in running planning departments or agencies, I always try to change the strategists out if they were getting shut down.
Yeah.
And put them onto something else, because you can get really jaded.
I have to tell you, I don't, looking back, I wasn't a good planner.
What do you define as a good strategy planner?
I think a good strategy planner is able to deal with that emotional kind of roller coaster of
rejection.
Yeah, I think it's that. On the flip side, I'm as far as I can tell, a spectacular ethnographer, or whatever you want to call what I do. Yeah. A human chameleon. I've managed a way to monetize my detriments. Take the things I'm bad at, paying attention, and
if I can monetize this fucking podcast.
Podcasting isn't a moneymaker, but it's
it fills the soul for me.
I think it also, this podcast I've listened to before, and as you mentioned before, I reached out to you. I think it's great. I think that finding your people and talking to them in a way that is asynchronous, but also has a real human connection. And we've never met before today.
No.
But what I'm actually really enjoying about this is, and you can't tell on the audio, but You're looking at me. We're having a real conversation. Yeah. That must be very interesting from your point of view as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually, I worked for a research company for 5 months or so, Brain Juicer in London. And this was an idea I had for them. I worked with John Kieran, I don't know whether you know him, but a guy who comes packing authenticity and integrity and all those good things, but found a bit wanting, I felt, in my experience with him, which is a shame because I really love the guy. But to be fair to him, he's a classic guy who's an entrepreneur who, if you have a difference of opinion on where the business needs to go, he just doesn't want to hear it, and he cuts you out. But the podcasting thing came from an idea that I had with them. I started doing a few episodes for them, and then, I don't know, John came home drunk one night and wrote me this mental letter, which I just went, oh, fuck that, I'll leave. But I've kept it going, and it gives me this kind of, it fills a purpose hole. I'm really interested in this idea of what we do. Do we get up at 9 to 5 and go to work for the man? Who said that's the right thing? Do you have to do that? And this is a thing I have to put out every 10 days, and I enjoy that part of it. I enjoy meeting people.
That's a good metronome to have.
It is, yeah.
It keeps you on, like, having some rigidity to that schedule.
Yeah,
it almost forces you to be productive. I know myself, if I don't give myself some kind of timeline, I love when clients give us deadlines. It's like a challenge.
Yeah,
it's like a video game.
Yeah, and also the curiosity I think that we probably both have. This sort of idea of just meeting a stranger. I mean, I met these people like a bit like you today. Yeah. Within half an hour, I'm a friend of theirs, and I get to hear some of their most intimate kind of thoughts on life, and it's almost a privilege to be able to meet these people and also put their stories out, because I don't want everyone saying, oh, why did you get this guy? He's really famous, he's great. I don't want to. We've all heard the famous people. There's this layer of people who have wisdom, who've got insight, who've got life experience that we don't hear from because they're not a Kardashian or a famous businessman in Ireland or in England or whatever, so I'm trying to get that layer of voice out there. And it maybe segues into what I really wanted to talk to you about, which is the fact that you go around the world and the fact that you spend most of your life talking to people a bit like this. I wanted to sort of tap into some of the things that you've learned, particularly over the last year. We have the Trump issue, we have nuclear war raising its head again, we have climate change that never will go away until we do something about it, if we can do something about it. We have AI on the horizon, we have a lack of compassion, we have inequality. Give me your stump speech on what you've learned just over the last year and where you think the world might be going.
So, I'm not a futurist. That's not my place to predict what's going to happen in the world.
Yeah.
The world's going to be awesome now. It's going to be awesome. It always has been awesome, and it always will be awesome.
Yeah.
There have been terrible things that have happened in relatively recent memory, in extremely recent memory, and also in the last 100 years.
Yeah, we're having this interview just a few days after the violent attacks in Las Vegas by that lone wolf gunman.
Bad things happen. That's not to diminish them or to make them any less terrible, but the world goes on. Regardless of what your feelings are about the American political system, my feelings are pretty firm and pretty much in line with almost all of my friends and colleagues, and probably almost all of your friends and colleagues.
So you're a Trump fan?
Huge, yeah, absolutely. I left my Make America Great Again hat in the hotel room. It was interesting to me because I always thought that way. I always thought everyone's pretty lefty and everyone's pretty even-minded and so on. And then I was in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 5 days before the election. It shocked me how many Trump signs I saw. And I was talking to a room of about 100 people. In that crowd, I was warned beforehand, don't say anything anti-Trump. People are pretty big on him here. And that shocked me. People around my age, all in marketing and advertising. Yeah. And it just goes to show you how much we miss of the world by not touching all the points. Middle America is a different animal than the world I know. It's essential to listen to viewpoints that are not your own.
Yes.
And it's essential to listen to viewpoints that are not your own, that are very either counter to what you believe, and then to try to figure out what they are, what makes those arguments work. So one thing I do all the time, especially when I'm renting cars in Oklahoma, or I'll listen to the extremely right-wing kind of
talk radio.
Yeah. I don't follow those viewpoints myself, but I love listening to them. I like going to magazine racks and picking up magazines that are not aimed for my audience.
Sure.
So you can't see this on audio, but I'm a Jewish kid from Canada. Right. So I'll read like African American hair magazines. Yeah. Or I'll read...
you've got African American kind of hair.
That's great.
Can't see this
I would say good. But I have no tattoos. I love tattoo conventions and culture. Yeah. So I want to understand what that is.
I mean, it's interesting, when I've come back to Dublin after 21 years away, and my friends ask me, like, what have I noticed? And really the disappointing thing I've noticed is that the top 5 things or 4 things that were a problem in 1996 when I left are the same fucking 5 things that are a problem, and have hardly moved anywhere.
But you have a great new tram line.
We're putting in a new tram line, of course, to replace the ones that we removed in 1920 when we thought we don't need tram lines anymore, similar with the rail network. But we have growing inequality after our big boom and bust, still a major problem. Homelessness. 200 people are on the streets rough tonight in Dublin. We can't find them a fucking home. There's 200 people in this pub right now, probably. There is a huge, wider homeless issue of families to about 8,000-10,000. We can't find homes. I mean, we can build hotels, all this stuff, hospitals overburdened, waiting lists, blah blah blah, and just all of these issues you can't seem to come in. Like, I lived in Singapore for 2 years, which is like benign fascism, but benign is the key word there. People don't set up isms to go, let's see if we can really fuck the world up. They're trying to come up with something that will work, and the Singapore thing has its flaws, has its faults, has its gerrymandering, same party in power for so many years, but you know what, it works.
But do you think those people are trying to destroy the world? Of course not.
No, I don't.
And do you think the people in America, let's say, are trying to destroy the world?
I think they're
trying to build their own world.
Yeah, but I was just going to go there. I think we've got so insular that really this idea that I'm only here for another 20 or 30 summers, it's not my fucking problem. I mean, give me this pulse that you feel, because you're on it. You may not be able to view the future, but where's your take on it?
I think that people are comically amused, a little bit upset, and a little bit kind of kicking themselves for not having things turn out a different way. But I think
half of them are.
The larger scale issues of potential nuclear war, I don't think that's on people's heads. No. I don't think that's considered.
That would just happen someday, and we'd go, oh.
Well, I always think about Terminator 2 Judgment Day, which is apparently a documentary now. In that movie, Linda Hamilton holds onto the fence, the nuclear weapons hit LA, all the children melt on the swings. Yeah. That's kind of what could happen. I was in Hiroshima a couple months ago for some work stuff. We did this thing, some of my team members and I, we walked across the blast area.
What does it look like now?
Hiroshima's gorgeous.
No, how is the blast area signified?
It's not.
It's not, okay.
We use Google Maps to figure out where you can find the information, and we just walked it, and it's all rebuilt beautifully. What was interesting there, though, is it took us 45 minutes to walk across the zone of complete kill.
Wow.
And that was a bomb that was 1,000th the size of the bombs nowadays. Yeah. They should force everyone to do that. Yeah. It's so catastrophically horrible that you would never even consider it if you had that power. I somehow think that the people who do have that power, I don't think they're going to step over to use it. The overarching characters in the game, like the Trumps, the Kim Jong-uns, put yourself in those situations. What would you do? Crazy.
Well, I kind of know what I wouldn't do, which is be provocative. There's a very good series, I don't know whether you picked it up, Oliver Stone's Conversations with Vladimir Putin. We have deliberately, in my view, been told to create a evil monster that is out to get us all. And this is like a 3-hour, 3-part documentary where Putin answers every question. Yeah, he's a bit sketchy on things like homosexuality and stuff like that, whatever. But the thing that struck me most about him was he is sitting there slightly baffled going, as far as we're concerned, the Cold War ended in 1989 or 1990, and we don't really have an agenda other than let's see if we can better Russia. You got the Ukraine situation, but he tackled every question up front. Trump coming out with this bluster and bloviation and all this kind of stuff, I'm kind of going, for fuck's sake, shut the fuck up and act like a president.
I agree with that mindset. There must be some things about Trump that people like, and there must be reasons why.
Yeah.
That's the part that really intrigues me. And there are some good things about the guy. I would love to sit in a room full of Trump supporters and find out What do you love about it? And what you hear back a lot of the time is things like, well, he says what he means. He doesn't pull punches. He doesn't...
the art of the deal.
There are ways of spinning all of that. I don't think anyone is all good or all bad, including me, including you.
Yeah, sure. Well, we have, one of the other podcasts I'd recommend to anyone who's just joining the podcast wave is Waking Up by Sam Harris. And Sam Harris spends an awful lot. I mean, he's been on the warpath against Trump, since he became the nominee, and before. But he does say, "Can someone please come forward who's an intellectual and give me the bit I'm missing about this guy?" And I think Scott Adams, I'm not sure whether it's Scott Adams, the guy who created the Dilbert cartoon, came on his show, and Scott Adams kind of played him. He played him a bit like Trump. But there's just a fundamental lack of integrity and honesty and presidentialness, if that's such a word, missing.
And you can spin it farther. I mean, there's no question. The guy's a colossal dickhead. He's a complete and utter caricature of everything narcissism and everything lack of knowledge, grandiosity in the world. But there must be good things also there. If you do have a stance against everything he says, you're probably not dead on. Like it or not, the guy's going to be a character in our life for a little bit of time. I think it's our job to understand, not to... Yeah, I watch the news and my wife sees it every single night. I yell at the TV screen.
Yeah.
When he was whipping paper towels into the crowd.
Yeah, I know.
Like, what the fuck? What's going on?
Who's wrangling him? I mean, the contrast is your own guy, Trudeau, who I think is almost the reverse, because if you turn over his log, it's not squeaky clean, but the way he's kind of galvanized the youth of Canada and the people following an easy act, I guess. But
following an easy act, yeah. Everything swings left to right? So, and Canada in the next election, the three leaders of the parties now in Canada are all... Trudeau's the oldest by a fair bit. There's one guy who's 38, and another guy just got elected also, 38. The gentleman who was elected to the NDP, one of the opposition parties, as the new leader, might be the best looking human I've ever seen. Right. And so they did a smart thing. They decided, hey, Trudeau's a really good looking human. Let's elect someone who's better looking than him, and let's run him against him.
Trudeau has developed, I don't know whether you picked this up over there, a great bromance with our new prime ministers are called Taoiseach here. Yeah. Taoiseach. We've never had a Taoiseach in their 30s. We've never had a Taoiseach, I don't think, in their 40s. And now we have one in their 30s, and he's homosexual. Fantastic. And he's an immigrant. And it's like, what? And Ireland occasionally astonishes with stuff like this. Yeah. We have a huge number of our people who will rebel against the church and the state in the way it was, and anything they can do to kind of go. So we have this guy, again, he's a bit right-wing, but he is a listener, and I think he might do something. He feels like he might do something, actually. But the two of them are great pals. His name's Leo Varadkar. For him to be in power now augurs so well for who replaces him. And a similar thing maybe with Trump. Like, the person who comes in and replaces Trump will be an interesting hire for president.
Yeah, everything always oscillates back and forth.
But this is a pretty violent oscillation.
And what's happened in Canada has been a very big oscillation from what... We had a conservative government for 10 years. It was a bunch of old white guys in suits. And now it's young white guys in suits.
Yeah.
It's funny, Ireland, my image of Ireland is based on very few things, but one of them is I see Ireland as being a tech center. Sure, I see it as being a really youthful global powerhouse. In tech
the reason we're a tech center is we hitched up our skirt and asked tech companies to fuck us.
For taxes?
For tax purposes. I mean, we have a 12% corporation tax here, which has been found to be in breach of EU rules. We went from an agricultural economy trying to become an industrial economy to compete with the north of England. Hey, that didn't work. To, we've got to be smart. We have a very smart, young, cheap, relatively workforce. And there's a lot of things that have huge merit here, but the key problem in Britain and France and in capitalism is that there is this shrinking middle class downwards. I'm a very lucky guy. I've got privilege. Been very thankful to have a great education and have a nice suburban house to grow up in, but the difference between that jump to the next lower rung on the ladder and lower still, huge numbers of people. I mean, I did a piece of ethnography in America in Texas, which was, we found like 1 in 3 Americans are either below the poverty line or 1 or 2 missed paychecks away from that. 1 in 3 is 100 million people.
Yeah, and the payday loan industry keeps America afloat, which is horrific.
Yeah. Do you see a time where something really will get done to close this gap or fix things? Or
no, I see the gap probably even growing. You would think the internet would have done that, right? You would think that one of these kind of global forces of mass communication but there's such distortions in the message that gets sent across. It hasn't worked out that way. Also, there's availability and access of that even. There's the have and have-nots in the digital age.
Yeah.
I'd like to say the world's going to become this idealistic, lovely snow globe. I don't think it is. There's a game I always play when I meet someone from a country where I don't live, and the game goes as follows. And we can play now if you'd like.
Sure, let's do it.
I ask you a couple questions about my country. Okay. You have to answer as honest as you can.
Sure.
And you ask me questions that could be the same ones or different ones about your country.
Am I trying to catch you out?
You're trying to...
Am I trying to establish if you're a replicant?
No, it's very, very, very timely, yeah. No, it's more just to learn about how much we don't know about other places. When I say Canada, what are the first 5 things that come to mind?
First 5 things would be not America, big, a good place to live, friendly. I feel Canada is one of the countries that I would look towards to drive a better future for the world. One of about 4 or 5.
Okay. Those are not bad terms at all.
I didn't say maple leaves and beavers and
hockey.
Hockey, yeah. I mean, what would your Irish thing be?
5 things about Ireland that come to mind. Phenomenal music scene. Probably led by the big names, by the Seaniebes and the U2s and so on. The commitments.
Okay.
I don't know why, but the commitments come to mind. Daniel Day-Lewis comes to mind.
Right.
So I'm leaning very entertainment-centric. Pubs. The idea of
Guinness and pubs.
Well, pubs. I mean, I see Guinness as a Diageo product in general. I don't really see it as an Irish.
Increasingly we're starting to find that they're trying to close a bit of the brewery.
I find the craft breweries much more interesting.
Yeah.
Like the Galway hookers and those kind of things.
Although I do have a slightly cynical approach to craft brewers on the basis that at one point Mr. Heineken was a craft brewer.
Yeah.
And then his brew is
good. His craft brew is so good.
Yeah, it's just everywhere, So the Irish thing is, we have a very good reputation. Yes, in music, but also in literature and writing and poetry and comedy. What else? Where do you stand on AI and stuff like that? And
okay, so things like big data, like AI, like all the tech buzz things of the moment.
Yeah.
I have very little knowledge about any of that kind of stuff. But what I do see is I see the usefulness of specific products in people's lives. In the US, everyone's using Amazon Echoes and Alexa and all those. I love the fact that Star Trek has become real life. Did you see those new Google headphones?
No.
They translate in real time.
Oh, like a Babelfish. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, yeah.
Very, very much like that, yeah.
Right. Accurately?
According to their little...
Have you used one?
No one's used one.
They
had a keynote that came out yesterday, I think. And it looks really cool in the keynote.
Yeah.
But...
So did the Siri ads with Samuel L. Jackson.
Exactly. So, I mean, the more mechanized the world gets, the more machine learning becomes a thing, and I think the more that we need really strong human voices as well. In my business, for example, we focus entirely on talking to people.
Yeah.
We don't even touch quant. We don't touch any of the tech things of the moment.
Yeah.
Someone else can do that better than we can.
If you take the AI problem and the worst doomsday scenario that we all get written out by our own creations.
The Skynet scenario.
Yeah. And you look at it alongside climate change, and you look at it alongside growing inequality, and you look alongside global hunger, which I think is getting a bit better, although getting a bit better means there's less people living on $2 a day. Here, you've got $3 a day, you're fine, All of those things actually have at their core this kind of creep. There's no checks and balances. This is what Musk is talking about. We used to have a time where we played Snake on our Nokias, and then suddenly we were playing Angry Birds, and now we can play World of Warfare or whatever. That sort of creep that goes on, You go, oh man, remember when we used to have to whatever, or our phones were green and black and now they're full colour, or we can now watch television. And it's that creep I worry about. Suddenly something happens, we've got no way of stopping it when it does. Suddenly Kim Jong-un does blow up a fucking nuclear bomb.
You should watch more Black Mirror. You should.
I do. I love Black Mirror, but Black Mirror is a great example
that's a great
somebody
example
going, "Hey guys, no one's checking this shit."
The world's an awesome game, and unfortunately, we're not in control. We have the ability to take our character and do with our character what we want it to do, and make choices we feel are right for ourselves.
Yeah.
But the world's a complex animal. I mean, it seems like those who do have, like the Bill Gates of the world and so on, I think they are doing good, and they are trying to make the difference they can make. I'm a person that believes the world is inherently good. That could be to my detriment when the machines take us over. I think people are pretty chill. Like that thing in Vegas a couple of days ago, that is the exception to the rule. After that happened, people didn't go into armed revolt.
Yeah, but it's moving that way in my view. I mean, the funny thing about that is when you look at America as a Canadian, as a European, you go, like, the answer to it is fucking staring you in the face, and no one wants to grasp the nettle. And actually that Second Amendment gun control NRA issue is at the core of a huge amount of the racism, a huge amount of the African American plight, a huge amount of so many things, the insularity, all that kind of stuff.
But it's the frontier mindset, and that plays. America is not a perfect thing, but
Australia had a frontier mindset too, and they did something about it.
They had the amnesty this last week. Yeah. America's a really interesting place. I may not agree with the stuff that goes on there. Yeah. I'm not going to buy an arsenal. But I've actually interviewed people in their houses who have shown me their arsenals. Yeah. And there's this guy in Smyrna, Tennessee. We did this interview once. The guy was in a trailer park. He's like, want to see my basement? He took us to this dugout part under his trailer, and he had literally an arsenal of machine guns and
there's a guy I worked with who had one over dinner one night. He said, he was talking about Sandy Hook and going, that the shooter could have done just as much damage with a baseball bat. And I'm going, like, what? Like, could the guy in Vegas have done more damage with a baseball bat? He might have broken his window open and thrown it at somebody, and someone might have had their head hurt. But
what is...
The excuses are hilarious.
What I found amazing, the NRA, who I believe is an inherently evil organization, they came out today and said they wanted to ban bump stocks.
Bump stock,
Brilliant thing to do. They're going out and saying, we should stop this.
We sold 11 of them last year or something. Yeah.
Well, and they don't make money off that. They don't have any manufacturers of those machines.
Well, they make money because of probably the bullets that they pump out at 200 miles an hour.
Oh man, what do you do with that?
What's the positive? You're a glass half full guy. Let's go back to that. Where I differ with you is, when you see a solution, when a solution is really obvious to you, be it in advertising strategy or be it in homelessness or be it in whatever, when it's really obvious and everyone knows it's really obvious, and back to P&G, and you're being told it's obvious and nobody does it, and in many cases they do the opposite, what sort of a fucking hope have we got? Because there's lots of problems that aren't obvious that really also need solving. But if we have the obvious problems and we can't solve them, or won't, or are afraid to, or are politically, I don't know.
I think that you're looking at situations with a certain kind of expectation things will get done, but you're ignoring other situations like hyperloops and
I know.
Like there's so much good stuff going on in the world. All I can talk about is the people I talk to. I think people are pretty good. There's very few people who I think are completely bad.
I guess I'm worried about more apathy and nihilism.
It's very easy to be apathetic about, or to turn situations off you don't like. It's like turning the channel back in the age of TV. Yeah. You can turn the channel very easily. You can filter your news feed. You can take off your Twitter feed. You can block people. The danger of that, obviously, is in just massive distortions happening.
Let's just flip it right away from first world technology, all that shit, and go to some of your... Tell us one of the stories about your Himalayas, some of those projects you've worked on.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very fortunate to go to experience a lot of worlds that very few people have a chance to experience in a very short time span also. Yeah. We did a project in the mountains of northeast India. We talked to people who had never seen, pretty much foreigners ever, way off the dirt roads, literally mountain tribes. You just get the sense that everyone's very similar. I love how smiles are a similarity across cultures. All people that I've talked to, and I haven't talked to everyone in the world, but all people I've talked to act in situations very, very similarly and laugh at the same kind of pieces and at the same self-deprecating humor. People want overall very similar things. They want health and happiness. That's kind of it. Like, I don't think it's much more than that. The last line you can leave on or put off is for themselves and others. Health and happiness for yourself, that's a constant, I think. But and others.
Open brackets and others. Open brackets, sometimes close bracket, close bracket.
Yeah, but it is sometimes. Like, I'd like to think of myself as an open-minded individual who likes people. But there are people I just don't like. I can think of some directly, like, who I just do not like.
Not everyone, I'm sure, can. But one of the other things that I'm noticing is, and I'm trying to get my head around this because, I don't know whether I can do anything about it, but there's this path that we're on, let's call it the middle class path. And when you get established on that path to a acceptable level for you, accoutrements of lifestyle that you need, whether you need a pool or you need a house in a country or cottage or whatever, when you get there and you've achieved it, you hold on to it, and any discussion that in any way talks about the people or from where you've come that are down the ladder, you will make and have already inbuilt excuses as to why those people can't be looked after. And it's amazing. I hear it from my father, who's very educated, and my mother, and I hear it from, I probably hear it in my own voice. The best example of it is you walk past someone begging in the street, they're only going to use the money you give them for drugs and alcohol. To which I go, so what?
Yeah, well, look at us here in the pub. I use the money that someone gave me at some point in time for something to buy a beer.
But we defend the right. It's almost like we all secretly do want to join the 1%, and we're going to protect that avenue as much as we can. Like there's a whole thing. I'm sure it's the same in Canada or everywhere. You've got to leave a legacy. You've got to make sure that the people behind you get, a bump up ahead, and the family get, really.
Yeah. So I mean, I haven't had that stage in my life yet. We don't have kids yet, so we don't have that whole build a legacy thing. In my head, though, like, I want to have status quo forever. I don't want to have legacy per se. I want to always be able to say I'm not worried about things. Like, there are times when I live a pretty fancy lifestyle, and there are times when
there's a radical thinker. I can't remember his name now. You might have him, but who says we should be giving everything we earn, bar what it takes for us to survive in bed, and putting it into sort of Africa. And he's a philosophical kind of guy, but he actually is practicing it himself. I couldn't do that. I'd be going, no, wait. I don't want to run out of money and become, on the breadline because I've been too generous. I will hopefully leave as much money as I can to charity when I die.
And this is why we don't live in a kibbutz, and why we don't live on I mean,
but they're working on things like universal wage in some towns around the world. When the AIs take over, when all the jobs are gone, how the fuck are we will we pay for things? Will things just magic out of the big? Will we still have a working class? Will we still have poor people?
Well,
are they all constant?
The world of Star Trek, I think, solves all of that, right?
Yeah.
Where they make replicators that totally... Once you solve the food problem, everything else is pretty okay.
Shelter,
But shelter, I think, isn't as difficult as food. Food you need several times a day. Shelter, once you got it, you're good. If the replicators exist, if they can 3D print food, every problem solved.
Before we finish up, what sort of 3 things would you pass back to your younger self or one thing that you've learned on your life course so far?
I wish I knew that failure was part of the game. There's no one I know who's been successful, no one, who hasn't failed not only once, but multiple times in significant ways. I think that's something that I did not realize at first, and I wish I knew that. The secret to life is the ability to deal with any contingency that may happen, and failure helps you. It's the ability to figure out what's going on and make a good decision out of it. So number 1 is the ability to do a failure. Number 2, I think for me, is travel everywhere you can as much as you can, and always leave your eyes open, and never stop being curious. Never stop being curious. Even if you think you know something or know a place, walk down the street that you live on walk by all the stores and try to recollect them all in your mind, you'll make a mistake. People make mistakes about everything, and so just always have your eyes open and your mind open to everything. That's number 2. It's number 3. I don't know. Number three is to be found.
Gotta find something.
But it's been
fill number 3.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today.
You too, and I will maybe come back when you have number 3, and we'll have another pint when you come back again.
Absolutely.
Great to talk to you, Daniel Berkal, and enjoy your trip to Ireland.
Thank you, sir.
Cheers.